Mifang and Jianzhen, the answer to the west. In the heart of Chang'an, the giant wild goose pagoda stood like a silent sentinel against the sky. The morning air was thin and crisp, carried on the resonance of 1,000 copper bells. Their chime was not merely a sound, but a vibration that seemed to settle the dust of the bustling city. From the shadows of the great arched entrance, a young monk emerged. His stride was measured, his eyes fixed on a horizon far beyond the city walls, carrying a stillness that made the world around him seem to slow its frantic pace. Meifang waited by the stone steps, her hands pressed tightly together in a gesture of profound respect. She was a small figure against the grandeur of the temple, her orange jacket a bright spark against the gray stone. As the monk approached, she bowed so low her hair buns nearly touched the earth. "Master Xuanzang," she whispered, her voice trembling with curiosity. "The road to the west is a dragon's path of fire and ice. Why must you leave the safety of the Middle Kingdom for lands unknown?" Xuanzang paused, his kakara ringing softly as it met the ground. "Truth, Meifang, is like a reflection in a disturbed pond," he replied, his voice a calm tide. "The scriptures we possess are fragments, echoes of echoes. They contradict one another, leaving the seeker in a fog of doubt. I do not travel for the sake of the journey, but for the sake of certainty. I seek the original brushstrokes, the untranslated breath of the Buddha, so that our people may finally walk a path of clarity." When the moon rose, casting a silver veil over the capital, the time for departure arrived. The great gates of Chang'an groaned on their hinges, a heavy, final sound that signaled the end of the known world. Meifang walked beside the monk, her travel shoes clicking against the cobblestones. As the massive wooden doors swung shut behind them, the lanterns of the city faded into tiny pinpricks of light, leaving only the vast, whispering darkness of the frontier ahead. The Gobi Desert was a sea of shifting gold that knew no mercy. The sun was a relentless eye, parching the throat and blurring the vision with heat hazes that danced like ghosts. Every step through the deep sand felt like a mountain climbed. Meifang wiped the grit from her eyes, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Master," she wheezed, "my water skin is light, and my spirit is lighter. How do we find the strength to cross this furnace?" Xuanzang did not stop, his gaze fixed forward. "We do not move by the strength of our legs, Meifang, but by the weight of our resolve." At night, the desert transformed into a kingdom of indigo and silver. They huddled near a small fire, the stars overhead so bright they seemed like fallen diamonds. To pass the time, Meifang spoke of legends she had heard, of a powerful monkey king with a golden staff who might one day protect a pilgrim on this very road. Xuanzang listened, a humble smile gracing his lips. "Magic is a wondrous thing in stories," he said softly. "But the true monkey king is the mind itself. To master one's own heart is a greater feat than leaping over the clouds." The heat of the sands was soon replaced by the jagged, frozen teeth of the Pamir Mountains. Here, the wind screamed through the passes, and the air was so thin it felt like drinking ice. Meifang's breath came out in white plumes, and her fingers grew numb despite her layers. She stumbled, the sheer scale of the white peaks pressing down on her soul. The world felt empty of life, a desolate cathedral of rock and frost, where even hope seemed to freeze. Xuanzang moved through the blizzard like a flame in a lantern, his red kashaya a defiant bloom of color against the white. He reached out a hand to steady Meifang as she faltered. "In the shadow of these heights," he shouted over the wind, "one realizes how fragile life truly is. But it is only when we are closest to the end that we remember most clearly why we chose to begin. Do not look at the snow, Meifang. Look at the truth that lies beyond it." After years of wandering, the horizon finally changed. The harsh mountains gave way to the lush, emerald plains of India. Before them rose the great Nalanda Monastery, a city of knowledge built of red brick and soaring arches. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the low hum of thousands of voices in debate. It was a place where the sun seemed to linger longer, bathing the libraries in a golden light that felt like the very essence of wisdom. Xuanzang did not rest. He immersed himself in the vast libraries, surrounded by scholars from across the world. He was not merely collecting books, he was a craftsman of thought. He spent his days and nights comparing texts, refining the grammar of ancient Sanskrit, and ensuring that every concept was captured with surgical precision. To him, a single mistranslated word was a bridge built on a weak foundation, and he was determined to build a bridge of solid stone. The journey home was even more arduous, for they now carried the weight of the world. Great wooden crates, lashed to the backs of horses and carts, were filled with hundreds of volumes of sacred texts. As Meifang helped guide the caravan through the mountain passes, she looked at the heavy boxes. She felt the invisible weight of the millions of people back in the Middle Kingdom who were waiting for these answers. People who would live and die by the words contained within these crates. On a quiet evening as they crossed the border back into China, the two travelers looked out over the vast landscape. "Master," Meifang said, "will they understand? Will all this labor truly change the world?" Xuanzang looked at the sunset, his expression reflective. "This journey is a bridge between hearts," he replied. "By bringing precision to our thoughts, we bring peace to our actions. Centuries from now, people will look to the West and see not a mystery, but a mirror." Back in Chang'an, the hero's welcome eventually faded into the rhythmic quiet of the translation bureau. Xuanzang retreated into the silence of his work, dedicated to the monumental task of turning Sanskrit into Chinese. He lived a life of simple devotion, his brush moving tirelessly across the paper. He sought no fame, only the completion of the task he had set out to do when he was but a young man standing at the gates. Meifang stood once more before the giant wild goose pagoda. The bells were ringing, their sound as clear and timeless as the day she had first met the monk. She looked at her hands, which had helped carry the truth across the world. She realized then that the answer to the West was never a single book or a destination. It was the courage to ask the question and the unwavering resolve to walk until the answer was found. She remained a young seeker, a child of the road, listening to the echoes of a journey that would never truly end.